The afternoon sun beat down on Jackson Pierce's shoulders as he stood in his doorway, rifle loose in one hand, watching the single rider approach. Even from a distance, he knew that silhouette, the straight-backed posture, the easy command of the reins. The way she sat a horse like she'd been born to it. Rose Campbell. She dismounted at his gate without hesitation. Dust clung to her dark riding skirt. The fabric faded from the road and the relentless summer heat. Her white blouse clung to her back, damp with sweat, and her eyes, those clear, unflinching blue eyes, met his across 20 feet of baked earth. For the first time in 15 years, neither of them looked away. "I hear you need help," she called, voice steady as stone. Jackson's jaw tightened. He didn't need help. Didn't need anyone, least of all the woman who'd haunted every goddamn sunset of his life. But Tom Brennan and his cronies had seen to it that everyone in Red Hollow knew about his situation. A ranch too big for one man, no wife, no family, and no future. They'd arranged this somehow, pushed Rose toward him like a chess piece. The question was, why? And more dangerous still, did he have the strength to send her away again? Rose tied her horse to the post and started toward him, every step measured, deliberate. There was calm in her movements, the kind that came only from someone who'd already made an impossible decision. She carried a small leather bag, nothing more. "Tom Brennan said you were hiring," she said, stopping at the bottom of his porch steps. "Housekeeper, cook, $15 a month. Room and board. Brennan's a liar. I know." Her gaze didn't waver. "He's also a bastard who thinks he can manipulate people like cattle." But the job offer was public, Jackson. Half the town heard it. "If you turn me away now, it'll look like you're the one with something to hide." Smart. She'd always been smart. "Why?" he asked, rougher than he meant. "Why would you want to work for me?" Something flickered across her face. Vulnerability, maybe, or the ghost of the girl she'd been at 18. "Because I'm tired of watching from a distance. Because your father died 2 years ago, and mine, last year. Maybe it's time we stopped letting dead men control our lives." Her words hit like a hammer. She went on, voice dropping lower. "Mrs. Morrison, Jake's wife, she was one of the few who saw through my father's lies back then. She knew I never stopped loving you." The truth of it hit him like a fist to the gut, and she added quietly, "Because Tom Brennan wants something from you. I don't know what yet. But whatever it is, you'll need someone you can trust when he comes to take it." Jackson studied her face, searching for deceit and finding none. Only the same fierce determination he remembered from when they were young, when she'd kissed him behind the church, trembling and fearless all at once. "Room's off the kitchen," he said finally, stepping aside. "Don't expect much. I never did." Her smile was small, but real, as Rose moved past him into the house. The scent of lavender soap, her soap, hit him like a memory. The interior was clean, functional, a man's world stripped of comfort. She set her bag down and surveyed the room with an appraising eye. "Your father's furniture," she observed, tracing a fingertip along the back of a chair. "But you moved the table to catch the morning light." He froze. "How do you know that?" "I've walked past this ranch every week for 5 years, she said, no shame in her tone, "on my way to the Miller place. The windows face the road. I could see inside." She hesitated. "I know you take your coffee black. I know you rebuilt the porch 3 years ago. I know you've never brought a woman here. That's a lot of watching." "Yes," she admitted simply. "It is." Jackson set his rifle above the mantel, needing something to do with his hands. "The town thinks this is charity, me taking in the spinster nobody wanted. Let them think it." She turned to the cupboard, inspecting his sparse supplies. "I have my own money, Jackson. I sold my father's house and store. I'm not here because I'm desperate. I'm here because I choose to be. And if I'd said no, then I'd have found another way." There was iron in her voice, iron and fire both. "This isn't the shy girl I used to know," he muttered. "She died a long time ago." Jackson exhaled. Brennan's up to something. He and Morrison, and a few others, they've been pushing me to sell land to the railroad. I keep refusing. Her hand stilled on the coffee tin. How much land? 50 acres through the valley. Right of way for the Western Line. They're invested. Stand to make money if it goes through. If not, they lose everything. Realization dawned in her eyes. So they need you desperate, alone, easier to break. Something like that, then we'll prove them wrong. She closed the space between them, reached into her skirt pocket, and pressed a small leather pouch into his palm. $300, she said. Everything I have? I want to buy into the ranch. A real partnership, equal shares. He stared at her. The weight of the pouch was heavy, but not half as heavy as the meaning behind it. Rose, I know what I'm asking. I know it's reckless. But Tom Brennan will come for you, and when he does, you'll need more than money. You'll need someone willing to fight beside you. He looked at their joined hands, the money between them, the spark of something long denied. 15 years ago her father's lies had torn them apart. Now she was standing here, offering him everything she had. Partners, he said slowly. Equal shares. Your name on the deed. Her breath caught. You mean it. I mean it. He tightened his grip around hers. But this won't be easy. Brennan won't let go. There'll be trouble. Good. Her smile was fierce. I've had 15 years of easy, Jackson. Easy was pretending I didn't care. I'm done with easy. The sunset poured molten light across her skin, gilding her in gold. He realized, with sudden, terrible clarity, that he'd never stopped wanting her not for a single day. We'll draw up papers tomorrow, he said thickly. Make it legal. Tomorrow. She stepped closer, her hand sliding up his arm. But tonight, I need to know if we're really doing this. We are. Then prove it, she whispered. Kiss me like you used to. Like you still want to. His control snapped. He caught her face in his hands and kissed her. Hard, desperate, 15 years of longing breaking loose in a single breath. She tasted like heat and home. When she gasped, he swallowed the sound, lifting her against him. She wrapped her legs around his waist, clinging like she'd never let go again. Jackson, she breathed, and the sound of her voice almost undid him. He set her on the bed, hands shaking as he worked at the buttons of her blouse. Tell me to stop. Never. Her fingers fumbled at his belt. I've waited too long. He peeled her blouse away, revealing sun-warmed skin and the simple chemise beneath. His mouth traced her throat, her shoulder. Her skirt fell away, pooling on the floor. She stood before him, in white cotton, the dying sun haloing her body. You're beautiful, he rasped. Then show me. She reached for the hem of her chemise. A gunshot cracked through the air. Both froze. Jackson's hand went for the rifle by the door. Another shot, closer this time, followed by the thunder of hooves. Get dressed, he ordered, already moving. Like hell. Rose dragged her blouse back on, even as he disappeared through the doorway. He reached the window in time to see 5 riders surrounding his property, torches in hand. Tom Brennan sat at the front, fury burning on his face. Jackson grabbed the Winchester, checking the chamber full. He had maybe 20 rounds in the house. Rose appeared beside him, hair loose, eyes bright. What do they want? Same thing, as always, he said grimly. Me desperate. Me broken. Then we don't give them what they want. He looked at her, this woman who'd walked into his life only hours ago, and now stood ready to face down an army. You should have run. I told you, she said softly. I'm done running. Another shot splintered the frame. Jackson fired back high. A warning. That's close enough, Brennan. You think you're clever? Brennan shouted. Taking up with that spinster? She's got nothing, Pierce nothing but debts, and a ruined name. Rose's hand found Jackson's shoulder, steadying him. Don't let him bait you. I'm not, he growled. But his finger itched on the trigger. The railroad gave us an ultimatum, Brennan yelled. Deliver your land by month's end or they'll take Jameson Road instead. We lose everything. We're not letting some stubborn bastard and his horse stand in the way. The word barely left Brennan's mouth before Jackson fired. The bullet took Brennan's hat clean off, sending it spinning into the dirt. Next one's not a warning, Jackson shouted. Get off my land. Instead, the men opened fire. Glass shattered, wood splintered. Jackson hauled Rose to the floor as bullets ripped through his walls. Back room, he barked. They crawled through smoke and splinters, hearts hammering as the siege on Red Hollow began. Bullets ripped through the wooden walls, shattering dishes and glass. Jackson shoved a table against the door and ducked beside Rose, his breath ragged. Smoke filled the air, mingling with dust and gunpowder. They're circling to the back, Rose said, voice steady, despite the chaos. 2 of them. Jackson tossed her the Colt revolver. You know how to use it. Her eyes flashed. My father taught me. 6 shots. Make them count. You have no idea, she said, checking the chamber with practiced hands. Jackson risked a glance out the side window, the barrel of his Winchester resting on the sill. Brennan's men were fanning out, torches in hand. He fired once, a clean shot that sent one torch tumbling into the dirt, extinguished. Stay low, he ordered. Not a chance. She crouched beside him, returning fire with a precision that startled him. The Colt barked once, and a man fell from his horse. Clutching his shoulder, they moved together like they'd been fighting side by side all their lives. Every sound, every motion between them was instinctive. When he shifted, she covered him. When she fired, he reloaded. For hours, they held the line by midnight. The torches were dying, the men outside regrouping. Jackson's ammunition was down to 10 rounds, Rose's revolver nearly empty. The house was riddled with holes. One window was entirely gone. In the dark space behind the overturned table, Rose wiped sweat from her brow. You know, she murmured, for a first day, this is rather eventful. Jackson gave a short, humorless laugh. You sure you don't want to quit? Her eyes found his in the shadows. I'm exactly where I want to be. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, even with the danger outside, even surrounded by gunfire and splintered wood. The pull between them was stronger than fear. After a long pause, she said quietly, I need to tell you something. He reloaded around, not looking at her. Figured you might. My father lied, Jackson, about everything. He told you I didn't want to see you. Told me you'd been using me out of pity. Jackson froze, the rifle half-loaded. I found out the truth years ago, she continued. But by then, it was too late. The damage was done. I swore if I ever got another chance, I'd fight for us instead of letting anyone decide for me. And then Tom Brennan started sniffing around you, and I thought why not turn their scheme into our weapon. He stared at her, the full truth finally sinking in. You knew Brennan would try to use you against me. I suspected, but I figured if they were going to use me as bait, I'd choose the trap. She smiled, fierce and tired, and beautiful in the dark. I came here to help you, Jackson, not to break you. Something inside him shifted. The years of anger, the loneliness, the quiet ache of regret, all cracked wide open. He reached out, cupped her cheek with his calloused hand, and for a heartbeat, the noise of the world disappeared. Rose's shout from outside cut him off. Pierce, you can't win this. Come out before we burn you out. Rose's jaw tightened. Let them try. The next sound wasn't fire, it was the sharp whistle of a new set of riders. The heavy gallop of horses moving fast. Then a voice carried through the chaos. This is Sheriff Wade. Tom Brennan, you and your men are under arrest. Drop your weapons. Relief hit Jackson like a wave. Within minutes, the gunfire ceased. The dawn light crept over the valley as Brennan and his men were rounded up by the sheriff's deputies. Jackson lowered his rifle slowly, exhaustion settling deep in his bones. When the door finally opened, Sheriff Wade stepped inside, a weathered man in his 60s, sharp-eyed and steady. "Hell of a night you had," he said. "Got a report from Danny Morrison rode into town before midnight. Said Brennan was gathering men to burn you out." Jackson blinked. "Danny?" The sheriff nodded toward the yard, where a scrawny young man sat slumped on his horse, looking about ready to fall over. "Boy rode through the night to fetch help." Rose followed Jackson outside. The morning sun painted everything in gold except for the smoke-streaked ruin of the ranch. Brennan and his men stood in irons, faces sullen. "You had no right." Brennan spat at the sheriff. "This is private land. Not when you're shooting it up." "It ain't," Wade replied dryly. He pulled a telegram from his coat. "Railroad got your message, Brennan. Seems they don't take kindly to partners using arson and intimidation. They've cut ties. Said they'll be dealing with Mr. Pierce directly from now on." Brennan went pale. You can't. I can," Wade said. "And I did. You'll be facing charges for conspiracy and attempted arson. Your men, too." Rose looked at Jackson, a question in her eyes. "What happens now?" "Now," Jackson said quietly, "we rebuild." Wade gave a small nod, looking between them. "Seems like you two handled yourselves just fine. Come by the office tomorrow to give your statements, and Pierce get some rest. You look like hell." When the sheriff and his deputies rode off, the valley was silent again. Brennan and his men gone, the dust settling. The ranch was battered, but standing. Jackson turned to Rose, taking in the broken windows, the bullet holes, the burnt wood along the porch. "Hell of a first day." Rose smiled through the grime and soot. "I've had worse." He laughed an honest, tired sound. "You're insane. You know that?" "Maybe," she said softly, "but I'm not running anymore." They stood together as the sun rose higher, light catching the edges of the ruin and turning them almost beautiful. For the first time in years, Jackson felt something he hadn't dared to name: hope. "Why'd you really come back, Rose?" he asked finally. She met his gaze, steady and sure. "Because I never stopped wanting this. You, the ranch, a chance to build something real." Jackson's chest tightened. "The world's not kind." "I know," she said, taking his hand, "but we can be to each other." He looked down at their joined hands, rough and soft, scarred and steady. "Partners, equal shares," she whispered. "My name on the deed." He nodded. "We'll start again, together." And then she leaned up and kissed him slow, this time, not desperate like before, but certain. It wasn't the kiss of people reclaiming the past. It was the promise of a future. The days that followed were long and hard. Together, they patched the roof, replaced shattered glass, and rebuilt what the fire and bullets had destroyed. Rose worked beside him every step of the way, hauling lumber, hammering nails, cooking simple meals when the light failed. Sometimes they didn't speak for hours. Sometimes she'd hum under her breath, and he'd stop working just to listen. By the end of the week, the house stood whole again, stronger than before. That night, when the last board was nailed and the last lamp extinguished, they sat together on the porch, watching the stars spill across the black sky. "Feels different," Rose said quietly. "It is," Jackson replied. "Feels like home?" She smiled, turning to him. "You know, I never thought I'd have one again." He reached over, took her hand, and lifted it to his lips. "You do now." The air between them shifted again, soft and electric. She rose slowly, stepped close, and whispered against his jaw, "Then show me." Jackson's breath hitched. He stood, catching her around the waist, and she melted against him. The months of silence and distance that had once separated them were gone, burned away in the fire of everything they'd survived. Inside, the bedroom was bathed in moonlight. He laid her down with reverence, his calloused hands tracing the outline of her body through thin fabric. She trembled beneath his touch, eyes dark with want, when he kissed her. It wasn't hurried, it was deep, slow, and full of everything they'd lost and found again. The way she clung to him, the way their breaths tangled, it was all the language they'd been too afraid to speak for 15 years. She whispered his name like a prayer, and he answered it with every movement, every kiss, until there was nothing left between them but warmth and heartbeat and quiet satisfaction. Later, when the first light of dawn crept across the room, they lay tangled together beneath the thin quilt, listening to the soft wind outside. "We still have repairs to finish," Rose murmured. "Later," Jackson said against her shoulder. "For now, I just want this." Her hand found his, fingers lacing together. "You mean us?" "Yeah," he said softly. "Us." Outside, the sun rose over Red Hollow, touching the rebuilt ranch with light. For the first time in a long time, Jackson Pierce wasn't alone. He had a partner, an equal, and the woman he'd loved all his life was beside him, ready to face whatever came next. Rose smiled, eyes half closed. "Forever sounds about right, doesn't it?" Jackson brushed a thumb across her cheek. "Yeah," he murmured. "Forever's a good start."